Hi, welcome to the Bootleg Book Club.
I'm Felicia.
And I'm Sam.
Thank you for joining us today. Today we are reading Hey Brown Girl by Janay Harden.
It's our third pick, and this is our third episode, and we're so excited to get started.
Yes.
So, Janay Harden is from South Jersey. She attended Rutgers University, where she received a bachelor's and a master's degree in social work, and she's a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist, which is very evident in this book,
yes.
which that we're going to be discussing today. She resides with her daughter. She's interested in astrology, spa days, and crabs. And she is the author of Hey Brown Girl, as well as 42 Minutes and Someone More Like Myself. This book is a little under 300 pages. And if you want to show the cover again, it is clearly a young adult YA type of book, type of feel. When I saw it online, I immediately thought, oh, this is like a cool girl type of book. Like, I imagine those books that, like, when I was in high school, like those cool covers that were colorful and nice. And like, if someone saw me walking with it in the hallway, I figured they would ask me, oh, like, what are you reading? Like one of those books that we would, those books that we used to pass around, like whether it be Gossip Girl or books that we shouldn't have been reading, so yeah, I thought that was cool.
Nice. I think for me, what stood out for the cover was the jacket, just the jean jacket, the style of it. I agree. It was very much like, this is a cool girl. She has like maybe a clique, a group, and that very much so drawn me to the book.
Yeah, I agree. So let's jump into Bookmark, where we talk about our favorite and least favorite parts of the book, and we also share a couple quotes that we liked.
Okay.
I'll let you start.
Okay. So I will start, and I will share. One thing that I thought was really cool about the book, overall, you kind of realize that it is told through different points of views.
Absolutely.
So,
which is interesting, because I initially thought it was only going to be through I would call her the main character, Raven's point of view.
Yes.
That's what I initially thought was going to happen. But it was interesting to start getting those different perspectives throughout.
Yes. So that's like one of my highlights. This is from Blair's point of view, who's the mom. And she's kind of talking about her upbringing. So it's like two parts, so I'm going to skip around. They taught their daughter to be good enough for white people. They taught her to demand an opportunity at their table. And when she finally got that opportunity, she had to be better than them. Blair just wanted to build her own table.
That's so funny. I literally have that same exact quote highlighted, page 136. I read that, and it, especially with everything that's going on right now, even in the context of the Supreme Court nominee hearings for Judge Jackson, it made me think of this as well. Like, we get all of these accolades, all of these qualifications according to the system that honestly white people have built. And it comes to a point where it's like, you'll never be good enough for them because everything is still their standards. And what it comes down to is they just don't want black people in their spaces. They want to keep living as if they are the superior race. And I definitely agree with that tail end of what Blair was saying. Like, she's ready to build her own table. She's ready to have her own spaces. And, we decide what's the standard. We decide, like, what's excellence and all of that. So I thought that was really great. And that's not to take away from what Judge Jackson is doing. I think it's going to be incredible when we have a black woman on the bench. But I think it also doesn't negate that, like, these are still, like, white systems. So.
Exactly. So going back to the ending, kind of later on the page, Blair's thinking, Blair didn't want to beat them. She just wanted to create her own path and something that would last. For her, that started first with a strong foundation and family.
Yes. And I would actually argue that not only Black American culture, but I think of like Caribbean culture, African culture. I think we do see that foundation there. For family and that centeredness around family, and not necessarily always what the outside system says. Right. So I definitely see where that foundation comes from, and wanting to build a foundation from that.
Yes. I really liked that quote because I related to it growing up. You know, I feel that coming from two parents who are Caribbean, it was very much instilled that you had to be twice as good, education, all of these things, and wanting to expose us to different things. For me, it was tennis, right? It was this, you need to know how to do tennis, play the white man's game, business deals are done on the tennis court, that type of thing. And it turns out it's exhausting. It's not fun. I don't want to do that. I want to find my own path.
Not only my own path, but my own tribe. Like, I don't want to have to play your game to be successful. Like, I want to do my thing and still, you know, come out successful in ways that I say are successful, or I determine, or I define as success.
Yes, I like that.
And that's what I think goes back to creating your own path, really.
Yes.
So
yeah, pretty much that entails everything that I really liked as the highlight and my bookmark.
Right. Okay, well, since you took one of my quotes, let me look for something else. There's two parts that I really liked. So it was the yoga part where Raven's grandma, Phoenix, is leading a class of yoga. She's a yoga teacher now. And it reminded me what the things that I love about yoga. But she says, and this is actually in Carter's point of view, I believe. He's like talking about his experience being in yoga. But he says, we quieted our mind and our souls. Let's relax our bodies. They do so much for us. This is Phoenix speaking, but like Carter relaying it, I guess. Let's recharge our hearts. Nana walked throughout the room. Forgive yourself, love yourself, be kind to your bodies and each other. Exhale the stress, the anger, the things that keep our body in survival mode. Let's exhale those things. We are loved, we are honored, we are celebrated. Just breathe. And one thing I love about yoga is that it's a practice that allows you to continue to give yourself grace and like not worry about being perfect. And also for 30 minutes to an hour that day, not think about work or family or anything any stressor that's going on in your life. You get to focus on your breath and just focus on your body and not necessarily have to think about being in that survival mode of what to do next so that I can stay on top, or that I can you know, stay floating above water. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was just something for me. It just was like a nice reminder.
Yes.
And then this is kind of cliche, but I highlighted this not knowing what was to come throughout the rest of the book, but I just thought it was funny. She's I believe it's the bus driver. I want to say her name is Miss Tiz or Miss Twiz. Miss Twiz.
For Twizzlers.
Yes. And she's talking to the girls, the brown girls, a few of the brown girls, and she says, never buy a man shoes as a gift. He'll walk away from you with those same shoes on. And I thought that was funny because I have heard this superstition before, and I thought it was just interesting, especially the setting of it being in Louisiana, and just like, you know, super, like just this vibe of like, these are the superstitions or the traditions that our, you know, ancestors believed in, and like, you know, are passing on down to us and like kind of guiding us or teaching us. And it's in my mind, it's a silly one, but I still think that sentiment behind it of like guiding and teaching is there. So I thought that was really nice. And just, she continues on other like lessons, like don't give up on like the relationship that Raven has with her friends. Like, when you build a circle of women who protect you and make you better, well, what's greater than support, baby? Keep them around. They're your people. And I think I actually find a lot of strength in my friendships and appreciate the friendships I have. Like, my very best friend is someone that I've known since I was 15. So it means a lot to me. So yeah, I liked that as well.
Yes. And I liked Miss Twiz. I think that definitely represents the whole community in this book, of sense of, it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
She definitely imparts a lot of wisdom, like you said, in them. And that is like a cute, quirky type of quote that's passed down, and it kind of shows the variety within Black culture.
Right, I agree. Okay, so let's move on to POV, where we talk about our favorite or least favorite character. I'm going to start because I actually don't have a favorite or a least favorite character. I think it was difficult to have a least favorite character because even for the antagonist in the book, or who you thought was supposed to be the enemy or the villain, I felt like they all had a reason that I could sympathize with them or could kind of understand their situation and where they were coming from. Like, they had some type of hurt in their life that I could understand where their actions came from. And I had no favorite character because even though Raven was like the main character, she also had her flaws. And I think she was a really well-written character because she wasn't perfect. And I think that's always nice to see in a main character, is someone who's not perfect. But I just felt like there was no favorite character for me because the more I read, the more I felt like the family as a unit is really a character in this book.
Yes.
And is like the main journey that we're following. And I would say that maybe became my favorite. It just being able to see how the family comes together in the end.
Yes. I wasn't attached or too drawn to one character either. I definitely saw the family unit as something you're rooting for, because I think in general the book felt like one big therapy session for the family.
Yeah.
I will say though, again, I felt the most connection to Blair with just in the details of her growing up, of how she was saying she would travel with her parents. I didn't travel much with my parents, but it's the idea that her parents wanted to expose her to different things in life.
Right.
And I think my parents, our parents, really made an effort to expose me to different things in the world to prepare me. So I think the work that Blair's doing now in her adult life to appreciate Black culture in a sense of that's just like going to the beat of her own drum is something that I definitely aspire to.
Right.
But in that end, I didn't find a least favorite character. I definitely felt that just overall, I think most characters just needed a bit more work. And I think maybe that could have been also the idea of seeing things from different point of views. I don't think there was much detail for certain characters.
On that note, we're going to go into our deep dive. So we're going to have some spoilers. So this is your spoiler alert. If you haven't read the book and you would like to read the book, maybe pause here and come back and listen later. Or if you are just ready to hear everything and you don't mind spoilers, just continue on listening. So yes, let's talk about it. The characters some of them were just not fully fleshed out, right? I felt that same vibe. I felt like some parts of the book were honestly just choppy. Like it felt like it was moving around too much, and I kind of found myself getting lost, and not in a good way. Like sometimes when I say I get lost in a book, I mean like I'm fully into the world, I'm like fully invested. But when I say I got lost in this book, I mean like I didn't know what was going on sometimes. Like I didn't really understand where the story was going, and I felt like we started to like jump all over the place. And I think that was partially because it came to a point where she was trying to show so many different perspectives, but because they weren't fully fleshed out characters, it just got too confusing.
Right. So to kind of just back up a little bit too, to explain, Hey Brown Girl itself. I don't think we've done a description yet.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No problem. So, Hey Brown Girl, it's about Raven initially and her family. Raven is an only child growing up in New Orleans with her mom and dad. And then her grandma, her Nana, is pretty much involved in the family too. And it's kind of at the start of her new school year, and she has all these ideas about what it's going to look like. And all of a sudden, what happens, her little cousin needs to come in and move in with them.
Right.
Because his mom, she has to go to rehab, right? And Carter's a 10-year-old boy. So, and then Raven, she's like 15 because her friend gets her license.
I want to say she's a little older than that. I want to say she's 17 because it's in her junior year of high school.
Right.
Which typically can be 17 to 18.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that. But again, I feel like even that was loose for me personally. Like when you're talking about getting lost, there were so many characters to keep up with. It was hard, even though like Raven was like the main character. It was just her thoughts are everywhere.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. You want to add anything else for the description?
Just that this really is like a family oriented story, and I personally started out reading thinking like, oh, this is going to be about her girlfriends and like the brown girl group and like the girls, but it really is more family oriented than anything else.
Yes, and that's one thing that would be cool to start off to talk about would be her group of friends, you know?
Yeah.
The brown girls, right?
Yeah. I did like that they showed a true sisterhood between black girls who are like high school aged, because I feel like we don't get to see a lot of those stories in the media. So I thought that was nice, and that kind of takes me back to that whole idea of like the jackets and the Hey Brown Girl and the cool, like just like this cool girl aesthetic that you saw just coming straight away from the cover. And within the book, you saw that they all had, honestly, their own strengths. I think she was trying to make them each their own person. But at the same time, this goes to, like, the underdeveloped thing. They were their own person, but then, like, everybody had a backstory that had some type of trauma. And it just was like, okay, we're going from trauma to trauma to trauma. And that takes me back to your comment about it being like one big therapy session. Like this was just like everybody needed therapy. Everybody had some issue that was going on. And it's just like in under 300 pages, you're not going to be able to fully flesh out these different issues, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like you're touching on so many different things at once. And you know what I think I would like to see, which I know we usually talk a little bit about, is like as far as a writer's wish, is maybe touch a little lighter on like everybody's different issues, and then maybe like each of them have their own book.
Right.
Yes.
I definitely hear that and I agree with that. I think one thing I would say though,
friends at least, not necessarily like the entire family. I don't think let me be clear, the entire family does not need their own book.
It's just the brown girl.
The brown girl.
Yes. No, I would say I think I liked that each of them had an issue. Not that the idea of trauma, that was like a lot to take in overall eventually, because it's like 300, it's a short book. I like though to show that not all the friends were perfect.
Right.
You know, it kind of showed, you know, people are going through things, you know.
Right.
That ends up being like a big thing for Raven to deal with. Which I don't necessarily think is fair on her part when a lot of people were saying she plays the victim. But it's just to show, like, you know, you're going through things, but also your friends are going through things.
And are you taking into consideration what they're going through as well? Like, you are always talking about your life. Let's make sure we're making space for other people to be able to express themselves.
Exactly. That was my only thing with that. Other than that, I really did like the Brown Girls as a group and just a collective. Just seeing, again, a group of young girls being able to laugh together, sit together, and just be with each other. You see them dancing in the book. You see them having crushes and just supporting each other or trying to support each other along the way. And I think that was something I could have appreciated overall.
Right.
Yes.
I will say that one thing I do appreciate about this book, and, say what you will about Happily Ever Afters, I appreciated that it was tied neatly into a bow. Like, when so Blair started this thing where the family does huddles and they talk about their highs and their lows of their day, which I've heard a lot about, a lot of families doing that. But at the end of this book, they have a huddle, and nobody has a low, because everybody has some positive or happy news to share, and I really, really liked that about the book, actually.
Yeah. I think it was really sweet and wholesome to have it. I think it was unrealistic, though. I just feel like there's still room to grow here. So I will say, though, just for, like, Carter, the young boy, it was really nice to see that he didn't have a low. I was really happy with that. But I was just like, all these adults, because you guys are still dealing with this, like, the sister just finished rehab. Like, I think this is a working process of things to, like, manage.
Right. And speaking of the sister, so it's Khalil's sister. So this is, Khalil is Raven's dad. And Khalil's sister, Cosina, she has a drug abuse issue, and she has a son. And that's the son that goes to live with Raven and her family. Yes. And I was reading it, and I kind of was like, wow, like, I don't think I ever took into consideration what would happen to kids, you know what I mean? Like, on the emotional standpoint, like, I understand, like, oh, like, they don't have a home to go to necessarily, but, like, it really resonated that with me that, like, oh yeah, like, they wouldn't feel secure about, like, they would have food insecurity, so that they would feel the need to hoard food because they don't know where their next meal is coming. They would get triggered by alarms because police have been, I would say, like, the culprit in, or what they see as the culprit or the reason behind their family being continuously torn apart.
Yeah, taking them away from the home.
And so then you start to see, like, yeah, he would, like, a child would have multiple triggers.
You're right.
So, yeah, like, it was kind of heartbreaking.
Yes.
In that sense.
Yes. It really was. I will say, seeing Carter's point of view, where in the beginning of the book, he's silent. He does not speak, and towards the end, though, you see that he's feeling safer to speak. I think that was really nice touch. But you didn't really get much from Cosina's point of view, but you could see that there was a lot of hurt there, because of the way that her mother raised her, right? And the trauma she had to deal with when she was a child. Right. That really hurt for me. She was also put into the foster care system because, their dad was abusive, and the mom kind of didn't know how to deal with that. And she thought it was best, for someone else to raise my child because I couldn't raise my child properly. Right. So you have this kind of history of trauma building up, again, which goes back to everything is traumatizing. Yes.
Trauma after trauma.
So it's like we're just trying to find pieces of where's the hope here.
Right. Which, I mean, I guess it did come in the end. Yes. I will say that overall, I do like this trend of discussing therapy in books. The last book we read, Legendborn, discussed therapy and having a counselor. And this book talked about it way more, and probably because the author is a social worker and a mental health therapist. But I think it is a trend that's growing, is what I can tell. And I appreciate that, especially when these are books that are going to be circulating in Black communities, because it tells me that maybe as Black readers and Black people get exposure to this idea of therapy, maybe they will start to consider it for themselves. And I can have an appreciation for that.
Yes, the exposure to therapy is great. I will also say this was really new for me, learning the different aspects of group therapy. I think this was something new introduced to me, where she's at school and she's with like a therapy mentorship group with girls in the high school.
Right.
I've actually never known for it to be like that. I was aware there's like group therapy for family and marriages and different things like that. But seeing that was very interesting, and I was, again, like you said, getting exposure to that and feeling more open to lean into that and learn more and see how that could also contribute to others' freedom, I think is really nice.
And also, I think just highlighting that it can be helpful at any age. I think there's this misconception that young people don't go through anything, and I think this book definitely showed that that's false. And it also, for me, showed how serious anxiety can be. I think a lot of people brush it off as just worrying too much, and that's not what it just is. Like, it's anxiety is just feeling overwhelmed to the point that you sometimes cry for no reason, or sometimes find that you can't do anything, like you just feel immobilized. And I think the seriousness of that was shown in this book as well, and that can happen at any age. And
Yes.
So do you have any other thoughts, any last thoughts?
So for me, in ending, my writing wish would be more pieces from Carter, having ideas from his perspective where it's a child perspective. I think because she's a therapist and she knows how people should think through things, I think a lot of his parts came as, it sounded like he was an adult, right? Maybe it could have been because he had to grow up because of the situation of his mom, but I felt that there were certain like connections he were making that felt like this isn't a kid.
Yeah, this is not what a connection a 10-year-old kid would make.
Yes. So I think that's probably like my last kind of ending feeling of what the book could have done more for me.
Right. Would you say you enjoyed this book overall?
Yes. It's definitely not my favorite, but it was something that I could read through. I didn't have to. I think I've read certain books where it's just like, I can't finish this.
Right.
But this is, I wanted to finish it.
Yeah.
I was like,
it wasn't a DNF, but it was, I agree, like not necessarily a fave either. But for the full review, you'll have to check out our blog and our social media. Make sure you check out all of our social media platforms, which will be in the description below. And just want to say thank you for watching and listening, and we hope to see you next time.
yes.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.